French President Emmanuel Macron addressed his country today following violent unrest over his government's policies. The so-called yellow vest protesters took to the streets again this weekend in Paris. They were demonstrating against taxes and against Macron. Some protesters say he favors the elite and is ignoring the working class. CBS News correspondent Elaine Cobbe joins me now from Paris. Elaine, what was President Macron's message today?
Tanya, his message was first one of condemning the violence, but mostly he was reaching out to say, I do understand. I understand why you're upset, why you're angry, why you don't feel that your wages are keeping up with rising cost of living. And he came up with some measures that he is offering them. He pretty much had to, really, at this stage. So he said that he will right away have his government raise the minimum wage by €100 a month, a little over $100. That's almost 10%, which many of the Yellow Vest protesters had been asking for. He's also said overtime will no longer be taxed extra. That was a big bone of contention, both for employers and for workers. And he's asked employers to give their employees a Christmas bonus this year that will not be taxed. Employers' taxes are very high here as well, sometimes as high as 50% of a payslip. So this is a move for both employees and employers.
So, Elaine, he had already backed down on the fuel tax, and that, as we know, did not seem to have been enough for the protesters. Do you think that these additional concessions that you just mentioned will be enough to stop the violence?
I think we'll have to wait and see what the people say, but they do address many of the main concerns that people were expressing once the fuel tax was out of the way, and people said, you know, that's not the only thing. We're concerned about the rising cost of living. So these measures will help both workers on the lowest salaries and employers, particularly employers who have small businesses. They also have been hit hard, and some of those on the street are people with small shops, small businesses, who say, you know, it's all very well saying raise wages, but that's not actually going to help us either. Also, his mood was very much conciliatory. He was trying to say, I do understand. He said, I know some people feel I have been too distant, and I'm sorry for that. I didn't mean to sound like I don't care. He said it's clear that what's happening now in France comes from years back, and he said it's happening now, so we will deal with it now.
So, Elaine, you mentioned raising the minimum wage. You mentioned that they would be getting an extra Christmas bonus. You mentioned that overtime would no longer be taxed. What exactly are the concessions, though, to employers? Because when I look at that list, I think, well, that means the employer has to shell out more money for a Christmas bonus, has to pay its employees more. Are they getting a tax break for all of this?
They get a tax break on the Christmas bonus because the employer's part of all the social charges that usually appear on a payslip here will not be charged. Basically, there'll be a normal payslip with all the employer's contributions, the workers' contributions, and then an extra bonus that will not be taxed at all.
All right. Well, hopefully this is enough to satisfy everyone, and hopefully the riots will stop. Elaine Cobbe in Paris, thank you so much.
You're welcome.